everybody. This is Josh, KI6NAZ, and I'm joined with Josh Tanner, the director of Decommissioned, and Frank Bauer, KA3HDO, the ARRIS chairman. And today we're going to be talking about Decommissioned, a really interesting video that is now out on Vimeo. The link will be in the description for this video, and you can check it out. It's a very interesting concept, and it was just an opportunity that came up to bring Josh and Frank together to kind of talk about not just the video, but kind of the origin of SuitSat 1. So first question for Josh. What gave you the idea to do Decommissioned? How did it come about?
I am a little bit of a tragic for falling down Wikipedia black holes. I absolutely love just searching, odd bits of history and information. And my, well, I'm a filmmaker, obviously, and my wife Jade, who is also a co-writer of this short film, we both discovered we're both really obsessed with space, and we discovered SuitSat on Wikipedia. And it was an initial sort of two-pronged reaction. One, it was, this is genius. It's amazing that they did this. How have I never heard of this before? And the second one was, it's kind of creepy that they put a that they sort of had what looks like a stranded dead astronaut floating around the Earth to keep floating around the Earth until it burnt up. And then add on to that there were voices of children being transmitted from it. It was just these compounded levels of, oh my gosh, that is the creepiest thing ever. Of course, always keeping in mind, yes, it's amazing that they sort of turned this, decommissioned piece of, the spacesuit into something really worthwhile.
Indeed.
That was really the genesis, was like discovering that that SuitSat existed. And then, all of the sort of films, or not all of the films, but a lot of the films that we make tend to take sort of pieces of history that are either quite odd or really interesting that maybe a lot of people don't know about, and then sort of spinning off a sort of a fictional story around that. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell how it came about.
That's very interesting, and I guess I never really thought of it like that. But yeah, at the end of the day, this is a suit that was kind of just thrust out into the vacuum of space, if you will. Let's get a little bit background on what SuitSat is. Frank, can you kind of give a bit of history on its origins and a little bit about its time in activation, I guess you could say?
Yeah, I sure can. So a little bit of background about ARRIS. We've been involved now. We've been operating for 20 years now at this point on Space Station. And 24 years ago, we started working this international relationship of trying to get all of the amateur radio groups around the world to work together to build and fly and operate, the radio systems on Space Station. And of course, NASA and the major aerospace company, space agencies are clearly working this thing, and in Russia, of course, the Roscosmos is working that. So our interface is with Sergei Sambarov and our RV3DR, and he came to me one day and said, "Hey Frank, what do you think of this idea? We have." What NASA does with their spacesuits is that after a period of time, they will recycle parts and fix them and put them back together. The Russians throw them out. Big difference between what the United States does with their spacesuits and the Russians do. So he said, we've got this suit we're going to be throwing out within a year. And if we do this fast enough, we could actually put ham radio gear in it and fly it. And then, that's when all of the ideas came out. I mean, he was the initial brainchild of this thing. And then, we just started running with it from a perspective of how do we bring students involved in it? How do we do this thing? And the time scale was very tight. And if we didn't meet the time scale, they were going to throw the suit out. So in a nutshell, that's what it was. We had 3 weeks. By the time both NASA and Roscosmos agreed to do this thing, or let us do this thing, because there's a lot of safety things that go along with it. We had 3 weeks to pull it all together and get it ready for launch.
That's pretty impressive. How long was it in
Amazing
service, if you will?
Yeah. So it was battery operated. I mean, if you remember the Sputniks as well as the first Oscar satellite, the first image radio satellite, those were battery operated. This was battery operated. We didn't have any solar panels or anything else. So we were expecting maybe about 10 days worth of operation. We got about 2 weeks.
Oh.
But then, the other part of it was the spacesuit just flying out there in space. And when was it going to come back in? And we had people tracking that. And we had what we called a Chicken Little contest. The sky is falling.
The sky is falling.
When is this SuitSat going to come in and re-enter? And we actually had a little contest for students in elementary, high school, as well as adults to guess that.
How long was it up before it came down?
It was launched on the 3rd of February, and I think it was August. It was about 6 months, a little over 6 months.
Okay. I mean, it had nothing in it to kind of help it keep going, so it was just in a degrading orbit basically from the moment it started, right? So it was never intentionally placed in an orbit that would be up there for a while, right?
No, actually, there's a couple things that we had to do, which was innovative. It was pioneering, actually, and that was to take something of this mass and allow the crew to hand deploy it and make sure it didn't recontact the space station.
Sure.
They had to put it in basically a retrograde orbit,
right?
So that it wouldn't recontact.
Yeah, because again, you could end up hitting it on another pass or who knows what, right?
Right.
Very interesting.
And then the other part about that was we had to have 3 redundancies in making sure it didn't turn on with the crew around it. So
good point too.
If you look at the top of the SuitSat, both Josh's, you can see 3. Basically, it were three switches turned on a timer, and then enabled the transmitter after the timer was over. So we did all of that. We got safety to approve that, safety to approve how it was going to get deployed, and frankly, that opened up. If you are aware, space station deploys satellites routinely now off of usually CubeSats. We pioneered all that stuff for all these commercial companies to do that.
Very cool.
That's amazing.
So Josh, it's a short video, but it's really nicely shot, and there's a lot of complex scenes in the video. A lot of the shots you took seemed relatively ambitious. There's the 0G scenes, obviously, because they're on the ISS. How did you do that? How did you come up with that stuff? Where did you learn what it is, these secrets that you have to make these shots?
Look, I mean, certainly not secrets, but I think the first thing to say is the short film was written about 3 years ago, and if you can imagine anything to do with sort of making a movie and having complex visual effects, computer-generated imagery, it's very expensive. And what has happened in the interim 3 years is there's been a great push towards using game engine development in feature films or TV series as well, which basically means that you get to use the 3D environments that are used in video games now, but they've become so photorealistic that you're able to sort of like merge them into film and video production. So what happened was this company called Epic, who run a game engine called Unreal Engine. They did a Star Wars show called The Mandalorian, and they used all video game backgrounds to sort of literally live on set, instead of having a blue screen or a green screen to sort of composite the imagery behind them. You literally were getting that imagery on set. so the actors could see, their spatial relations to what was really there. And they were getting the interactive lighting. So, for example, if you were shooting green screen, you would have to simulate the lighting of whatever you were going to add into the picture next. Whereas if you had this live virtual production on set, you were getting, all of the interactive lighting, the reflections, all of those things on the day. So this company, Epic, teamed up with the Australian film industry to offer a bunch of filmmakers a small cash amount to make short films using the Unreal Engine. And it just so happened that we had the script for Decommissioned, which we thought would be impossible for the resources we had. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is our opportunity to make this. And we'd found out, I think in October last year, and we had probably about 7 weeks from the thumbs up to delivering the film to make it, which was a crazy turnaround. So it's interesting you're talking about the SuitSat having sort of been spurred on by a rushed development. That's sort of what we went through as well.
What was the biggest challenge in making Decommissioned?
I think it was the zero gravity. I think because a lot of, like even feature films, they kind of sidestep the zero gravity thing, and they have a switch where it's like, oh, suddenly we're in gravity now. We've got a gravity engine.
Right.
And anything that's, I feel is like a horror movie or like suspense, requires a level of like realism, or as much realism as you can create, just so the audience buys into it. It's that suspension of disbelief. So we knew immediately that we wanted to take a stab at the zero gravity thing, and that was really tricky because we shot over 2 days, and the first day we didn't have any wire rigs, but on the second day we had the actor, in a full harness with wires sort of coming out the back and all rigged to the ceiling. Mm-hmm. So they were able to be sort of puppeteered and floated and all of that. And then in post-production, you remove those things. But the first day, he had to do everything, leaning on a stool or
because it was all shot chest up, or you're shot close in, right? So he's kind of pretending.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Exactly. That's it. So I think that was, on set, that was tricky. But then you also, when we got into the post-production of it, so once we'd filmed the 2 days and we'd edited it all together, was adding all of the 3D assets that he lets go of. So he lets go of his
the camera,
SLR, he has the handset when he's talking, or when he's listening to SuitSat transmissions. We had the little cable floating, and then when he lets go of his headset, that floats as well. So I think that was the most ambitious part of it. Was, oh my gosh, can we pull this off? Realistically enough to draw audiences in, and I think we managed to do it.
I think you definitely did. And actually, when you were mentioning the wire harness, that reminded me of the scene where you're behind the actor looking through the cupola, and there's kind of a rotation. I don't know if it was a camera rotation or how you did that, but yeah, it's very atmospheric. And I mean, space can be scary if you put it in the right context for a video or a movie. And this is a prime example of it. There's a lot of suspense, right, leading up to all the things that happen, which we won't spoil. It's 6 minutes. Go watch it, everybody. There's shots that you have of SuitSat as it's in space. Is that like old video that you repurposed? Is this something that was rendered in the Unreal Engine? How did you do that?
Yeah, so when the film starts, there's a couple of archival shots, which you probably recognized, and they were licensed. But then there was... pretty much any other time you saw SuitSat was in the game engine. So it was a 3D model of a of an all-on spacesuit, and our post-production team, Cutting Edge, they put their little box and the antenna on, and did the best that they could to replicate what you guys at ARRIS had sort of put together.
It looked fantastic. I think you did a great job. And particularly, my next follow-on question with that, but you've answered it because it's done in Engine, was there's a scene where it moves. And I was like, oh, okay. When did we stop using the footage and then actually went to something that was rendered in an engine? But that's great. I mean, I couldn't tell. I thought it was literally an old suit, the old suit flying by. Obviously, I knew it wasn't captured the way it was, but it looked fantastic. So great, nicely done.
Look,
there was
or I'm lying and I just have an all-on spacesuit in my
yeah. You just you did a great job covering that. Yeah, I don't know how you got it. Maybe that's a question for another interview. There is a shot
to the Russians.
They're coming for you now, I guess, or they're going to come ask you. There's a shot that you do. Actually, there's a couple of shots where you've got radio in the background, and it's meant to sound like the type of contacts were likely going on SuitSat. Were those recorded from SuitSat, like the actual contacts?
No. All I could find on the internet was a young girl saying, "This is SuitSat 1 RS0RS," and then it went to I can't recall what language it was, but it was like a man, speaking, it wasn't French. It might have been like Hindi or something. I don't know what language it was, but it was such a short amount of, and I just was like, okay, like it's obviously, you have a setup and then you have different voices speaking in different languages. And so basically what we ended up doing, and Frank, I'd actually be very curious to know what really were being said on those transmissions, but we sort of had to take some license and imagine what might be said, and we used a great service called Fiverr, which is basically like a freelance platform where people can say, hey, I'm a voiceover artist and pay me this amount of money. And so, we just went all over the world getting voices from different languages, different ages.
Smart.
And then just our sound designer, Tom Keller, he had a lot of fun making those sounds, sound
like they're coming over the radio. It was very, the voices, I think, were some of the most off-putting parts about it. It's what builds the kind of suspense of what's going to happen. It was nicely done.
It was a great, I think, I was so overwhelmed, or not overwhelmed, but kind of like focused on the visuals and making sure everything we were doing with the set and the projection and all of that were, and I should also say, on what you see in the film, inside the cupola, when you're seeing space, that was all on set. That was a projected image.
Wow.
Which was amazing. The actors got to see that on set. But so while I was, very focused on that sort of thing, I really didn't think of how strong the potential for sound was and those SuitSat transmissions. And once we'd gotten into that process, I was like, oh, wow, this has the potential to steal the visuals, the spotlight from the visuals.
Sure.
Completely.
Well, so projected, it's literally like a projector onto a wall and the actors are in front of it?
So I think the best way to it's rear projection. So what you do is...
I understand, yeah.
Yeah, so you have a giant projection wall and you project from the back, which basically means you can have your actor or your set piece as close to the screen as... Well, you can have your projector sort of a good distance away and you don't get any spill or anything like that.
Right.
That's the way they did the Mandalorian, right?
Well, actually, they used LED screens, so they used little all together. We couldn't afford that.
Yeah,
we had to go the old school way.
That's pretty cool,
We were doing the poor man's version of that.
Yeah, but it looks amazing, absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
What was it like working? You said you licensed some of the stock footage. Was that something you worked out with NASA, or what? Did you have to work with NASA or any of the agencies?
We talked with NASA, and the conversation was, look, as long as you don't show our logo, you can, use these things. But the SuitSat footage wasn't actually in their library, which was strange. I mean, their public library. So we actually had to get it from, I think it was AP. I think we had to get it from the Associated Press, their stock video, and license it from them. So I don't know how that works. That they must have some deal with NASA or something for very specific stock footage that they do sort of license out. But yeah, that's how we went about that.
Sure, that's pretty interesting. Surprising they didn't have the content, the stock footage for it, the NASA.
They had some photographs, I think, but not the that great sort of footage that was taken as they pushed it out.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So Frank, the SuitSat had a radio in it. Was it like a crossband radio that was basically like a repeater, much like we do with the FM sats?
No, actually, it was Kenwood radio. It was a handheld.
Okay.
It was on one frequency.
Okay.
Like I said, we had 3 weeks to pull this all together. Josh, you got an email or Twitter message, I think, from Steve Bible.
Mm-hmm.
He was working the digital part of this. We had team members around the United States that were doing, the development of the modules that are embedded in the suit and then on top of the suit. And then Sergei Sambarov had one of our antennas we built many years ago, and he used that for the antenna on top of the suit. So that's basically how that worked.
So it's one frequency, and you talk through it to others, a simplex, or how did that work?
No, it was all transmit down.
Oh, it's a beacon, basically.
It was basically digital. It was slow scan television, and it was audio voice.
Okay.
If you want to hear the story about the audio voice, I can talk about that. So our intent was to have greetings from students all over the world.
Okay.
And so we did that. We had, different ones, and then the Russians had some greetings too. And I sent you all a chart package, and that's kind of in that.
Mm-hmm.
But we got all done, and I get a phone call the night before everything had to be shipped out. And it was, hey, we don't have a call sign. We don't have a voice on this thing. The story is this. I had to wake my daughter up, who was in middle school at the time, which she was not too fond of. And we went through a bunch of takes. She did this is SuitSat 1 RS0 RS. I have the outtakes too.
That's awesome.
And we put that in there because we had no other choice. We had to get something in. And so it ended up being my daughter. And so when your video came out, I said, Michelle, I don't think it's you. It doesn't sound like you. And she listened to it and says, nope, it's not me.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
What did she think of the film?
Oh, she loved it. Absolutely.
I actually had my wife watch it. I had seen it, when we started talking, and I showed her just recently, and I didn't give her any warning. I'm like, oh, this is about SuitSat. Oh, it's a ham radio thing. And she's like, oh, not another one of these ham radio videos. But I put it in front of her, and she's watching it. She's kind of looking at me like, why is it getting scary? So it was really fun because it's kind of different from a lot of the stuff I normally make her watch, and so she thought it was quite good. I found that very funny. So was it, Frank, was it just the audio files that were played out and then, break every once in a while so people could hear, like you said, the different hellos from around the world kind of thing? And you said SSTV too, right?
Yeah, we had an SSTV image also. It was about all we could do at the time. The messages also, the student messages had I'll call it a secret word, and the students were supposed to capture that. So we tried to make this, Josh Nass, you understand, what amateur radio is, and I guess Josh Tanner, you are starting to learn it now. We're trying to, our intent in ARIS is to get students excited about science, technology, engineering, and math through, amateur radio. And so we wanted to use this as another way to capture the world's imagination of space and of amateur radio. And it was clear when we did it, that we were successful, because the worldwide attention to this thing, I mean, we had and this is in 2006, we had almost 10 million hits to our SuitSat.org website in the time frame we did this thing, which was only 2 weeks. And so
that's amazing. Wow.
It really was, especially 15 years ago now. Actually, this past week was the 15th anniversary of the deployment of SuitSat.
Huh.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's the SSTV contacts, the events that come up. They're always a lot of fun. People get really excited, and imagine if they know that it's coming down from an astronaut suit or cosmonaut suit. I bet they would find that pretty interesting. So I guess that's the $10,000 question, right? Every ham always, when they find somebody that doesn't have their license yet, they always got to ask, when are you going to get your license? So Josh, it sounds like you're looking into ham radio a little bit.
I did a little bit of research, and I've dipped my toe in enough to keep going. So I would love to explore more for sure.
Oh, that's good to hear. I think, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know that we have many directors that are a part of the community that make, this quality of video. I love making video, but I'm very amateur at my level. But what you've done with Decommissioned is very high level, and I know hams all over the world would love to see more ham radio level of video that you've made here with Decommissioned.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's I've been making films and TV commercials for about 12 years now, and I really, every short film I try and sort of step up, the quality, and I'm so glad to have found, your SuitSat, the whole information about it. It just blew my mind, and I was just like, I have to make something with this. This is too cool.
Where can people go to find more of the videos you've done, or where would you point people to find out more about you, Josh?
So the Vimeo link to Decommissioned, if you sort of go lower in the video, you can sort of see the Perception Pictures, which is the username. If you click on there, there'll be a group of other short films. There's one short film called Wandering Soul, which is a similarly supernatural film set during the Vietnam War, inspired by some freaky true events. That's all I'll say about that. And there's another sci-fi film set during the early 1960s, has to do with space, and we don't go into space in that one, but it is very space themed. But yeah, there's a few shorts in there that sort of really show, my taste and style. So I'd love your audience to check those out.
Yeah, they'll definitely put it in the description so everybody can go check them out. Sounds great, because I really did enjoy this video, so I'll go back and watch the whole list. Frank, I think a lot of hams know a bit about ARIS, but what's the best way to get people more information about what you're doing over with ARIS?
Yeah, the best way is to get to our website, aris.org, ariss.org. We are doing about 2 schools a week, and it's amazing. Students, I get to talk directly to the astronauts on the International Space Station. The astronauts volunteer their time to do this because they believe in our program, and each one of them has to go through that licensing activity, get their ham radio license to actually use our equipment. So it's a fantastic program. I mean, basically, that's another thing we did back in 1983 was open the human spaceflight program up to the general public through amateur radio, and that was with Owen Garriott, who had the call sign W5LFL. He started talking to hams on the ground, and students were engaged. They heard these contacts, and that's the genesis of how our program began 37 years ago.
That's so cool.
It's fantastic. I love it.
I was curious whether or not anybody could see SuitSat with a telescope from Earth.
So take a look. I sent you all a Dropbox link. We got an individual actually with a telescope, did see SuitSat, and you can actually see it rotating. You're not seeing the satellite itself, but you're seeing the pixels getting bright and dark as the thing is going along. So it's pretty cool.
I would imagine if it was any more than just a pixel, that would be terrifying. to have your telescope out and suddenly just see this human body hurtling around.
First off, I gotta say that, you know, I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey when it first came out in 1968, and I saw that happen. And it's like, when we talked about doing this, it's like, oh, we got to do this because of we're gonna make a science fiction movie a fact. The other part, and this is a story, I have not a confirmation of this, but I'm 90% sure it's correct, is that someone in the medical field within the space agencies, and I don't know which one it was watching, wasn't totally familiar with what was going to happen, and they watched this suit go out and they almost had a heart attack.
Oh, sure. They're like, oh no, there's somebody's out the
someone
out the hatch.
Is gone.
I love it. That's funny.
Yeah.
Quite curious, like what kind of things were the messages saying? Like the voices from all around the world. Can you recall? Is it in that document that you sent out?
Not. I have to resurrect them. I've got my daughter. Get you that too. What we were trying to do was to have students in different languages provide greetings, so that everyone felt, you know, comfortable, you know, hearing this suit and knowing that they're part of it. The other part, I didn't say this, is an important piece. We asked before the flight, we asked around the world for students to, if they had artwork, signatures, or other things, if they wanted to fly them. And remember, this is 2006, okay? We put them on a CD and we launched it. And if you look at some of the photographs, you can actually see the CD on the front of the suit.
Yeah.
Students actually were part of the spacewalks. We did a student spacewalk with them too. So, you know, the bottom line is we were trying to engage students as best we could. And the whole doing the voices, we asked each one of our regions, you know, that supports ARIS, to get a student to do that for us.
It's
incredible.
Looking at these pictures, though, you do get a kind of eerie feeling with the suit just kind of floating out there. I do, particularly that vantage of looking down at Earth and you have the suit just kind of there and it's not connected to anything.
That's right.
It's quite eerie.
And those are really good photographs. One thing I got to tell you is you nailed it relative to SuitSat. I mean, of course, I saw the video as it was happening, you know, when they deployed, and I actually have that video. We were able to download that from NASA before you know, it disappeared, if you will. And and then watching it rotate and things like that, and then seeing the video, or I'm sorry, the pictures that came from this this telescope operator that actually did it. You nailed the whole aspect of how SuitSat went, except for the interesting parts at the end.
Yeah.
Wait, that didn't really happen? Oh, I thought this was based on a true story.
I don't know, you know.
No, I really appreciate that. Look, I'm sure there's plenty in there that we got wrong, but I mean the fact that, you know, you feel like we got some of those aspects really, really well is amazing. Thank you for telling me that. But yeah, it's I'm just glad that when you guys sort of came up with this, you were aware that it did look a bit spooky.
Yeah.
And that it wasn't such a shock to you that some people kind of looked at it and went, "That's kind of creepy."
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
there's
we
movies
understood.
just based on that, right? Getting stranded in space is kind of everybody's a fear
Exactly.
that people have that they think about.
I'd like to thank ARL and AMSAT for their sponsorship over the years, from the very beginning of this program. I mean, it's we couldn't have done it without them, and they continue to be staunch supporters of our program. So I did want to get that in.
Absolutely, yeah. Big thank you to AMSAT for everything they do as well. So
Thank you guys for so much for reaching out and making this possible. I honestly couldn't have imagined that the guys that were responsible for SuitSat actually reaching out and acknowledging having seen it. I can't tell you what a thrill, just what a thrill it really was to get that opportunity for you guys to see it. And it does make me wonder if the guys on the space station will ever get to see it.
maybe wait for him to get back to Earth before having him watch it, I think.
That would be quite an experience.
As soon as I saw that there was something about SuitSat and someone talking about this is a cool movie, I'm like, oh, wow. So I jumped right on it, and everyone in our team jumped right on it and really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for watching it. Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for the inspiration. Because I can't do what I do without you guys sort of coming up with these great, amazing things that not only inspire me to make a short film, but inspire the world and inspire kids to sort of get into amateur radio and space. And I've been a space nut since I was a kid, and here in Australia, and everything I always do keeps coming back to space. I'm just obsessed with it. So this was a real labor of love making this short film, and I maybe would love to turn it into a feature film. So maybe we should keep talking.
Yeah, if you're gonna, let us know. We will, we can provide any kind of information if you need it. One thing I didn't say, Josh Tanner, and I think Josh, this. My team's almost all volunteer. We do all of this stuff. We don't get paid for it. So we've been doing this stuff for 20 plus years now. And I will let Sergei Sambarov, my colleague in Russia, we're meeting on Tuesday. I'll let him know. I'll express your thanks to him on this whole idea too.
Very good.
Please do.
It sounds like Frank knows the voice actor you might be able to use if you wanted to do future work too. So they can work that out.
Oh gosh.
That's a thrill. That's a thrill to hear that, because I heard so few voice bits, of the real transmissions, and your daughter was the one I did hear. So it's amazing.
I didn't, my daughter didn't like the whole idea until about 3 years later. Then she realized what difference she made to the world, if you will.
Is there a recording of that somewhere, Frank?
You're waking me up for this.
I can send it to you. I'll send you the link.
This is SuitSat 1, amateur radio station, RS0RS.
Boy, this is a lot of fun, guys. I'm really glad you're able to hop on here. This is on the ARRL's YouTube channel. I really appreciate the ARRL for letting me do this, but I want to say again, big thanks to Josh, director of Decommissioned, and Frank Bauer, KA3HDO, the ARIS chairman. I am Josh, KI6NAZ. I run the Ham Radio Crash Course also here on YouTube. And we all really appreciate you watching. Thanks so much for doing so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is SuitSat 1, amateur radio station, RS0RS.
Mission time is 0:00:301 minutes. The temperature is 27 degrees Celsius. The battery voltage is 27.4 volts.
This is SuitSat 1, amateur radio station, RS0RS.
Дорогие майовцы, от имени всех работающих на центральной базе МАИ в Москве и всех его филиалах в Байконуре, Ахтубинске, Жуковском, Люберцах, Таганроге, Серпухове, Химках сердечно поздравляю вас с 75-летием Московского авиационного института. Желаю крепкого здоровья, счастья, оптимизма и больших творческих успехов на благо нашей великой Родины. Шлю космический привет всем радиолюбителям планеты Земля. Спасибо.
This is SuitSat 1, amateur radio station, RS0RF.
Saludos a todos los estudiantes del mundo. Somos vuestros amigos desde Europa. Nuestra palabra especial es futuro.
Grüße zu allen Studenten in der Welt. Wir sind eure Freunde aus Europa. Unser spezielles Wort ist Zukunft.
This is SuitSat 1, amateur radio station, RS0RF.
Земляне, уважаемые граждане России, дорогие бауманцы, я обращаюсь к вам в год славного юбилея жемчужины российского и мирового инженерного образования Московского государственного технического университета имени Баумана. 175-летняя история МГТУ имени Баумана – это история развития научной и технической мысли в нашей стране и мире. В объективах нашего спутника Земля показывает себя во всей красе. Она так прекрасна, наша планета. Давайте сохраним наш дом.
This is SuitSat 1, amateur radio station, RS0RF.
Bonjour à tous les élèves du monde entier. Nous sommes très contents de vous envoyer un message Canada. Nous voulons vous souhaiter la paix, l'amour, l'harmonie et beaucoup de joie. Nous espérons que vous avez aimé cette communication venant de l'espace. Le mot spécial du Canada est érable.
This is SuitSat 1, amateur radio station, RS0RF.
On the occasion of the university anniversary, my congratulations to the Moscow State Technological University staff, all the Bauman postgraduates, events, the Jubilee spacesuit satellite is our present to the world radio amateurs, this being one more step in space education program. Alexander Alexandrov, Project Manager, Cosmonaut of Russia.
This is SuitSat 1, amateur radio station, RS0RF.
世界の皆さん、こんにちは。僕たち、
私たちは
入間市児童センターで無線や天文などの活動をしています。いつの日か僕たち子供でも宇宙に行ける日が来るのを楽しみにしています。
合言葉は富士山です。
This is SuitSat 1, amateur radio station, RS0RF.
Greetings to the students around the world. This is a message from your friends at Eastern Middle School in the United States. We share a mutual excitement about the future of space travel. The USA special word is freedom.
This is SuitSat 1, amateur radio station, RS0RF. This is SuitSat 1, amateur radio station, RS0RF.
Mission time is 000310 minutes. The temperature is 27 degrees Celsius. The battery voltage is 27.4 volts.